All right, let's jump right in. Today's explainer is essentially a comprehensive masterclass acting as a detailed business plan and pre-investment project report. We're going to break down the actual mechanics of setting up a large-scale battery energy storage system, or BESS, manufacturing plant right in the heart of India's booming renewable sector. We'll be unpacking all the critical insights you need, from market feasibility and competitor benchmarking to operational readiness and the raw financial outlays.
To really grasp the absolute urgency of this sector right now, just consider this one massive projection. The Indian BESS market is slated to hit an astonishing $19.4 billion by 2035. And this isn't just natural, organic growth either. It is being violently accelerated by a national mandate to reach 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030. To actually integrate that sheer volume of solar and wind into the grid without it collapsing, well, the grid desperately needs storage.
So here's our roadmap for this breakdown. We're going to walk through the macro market opportunity, assess the technology and competition, evaluate the geographic epicenter of Rajasthan, lay out a strict operations timeline, and finally, dive into the hard financial feasibility.
Okay, Section 1. Market Opportunity, Powering the Renewable Revolution.
From a market entry and opportunity assessment standpoint, the sheer scale we are looking at here is massive. We're talking about a market expanding at an explosive 24.3% compound annual growth rate. Why so fast? Well, as India ramps up all that solar and wind generation we just talked about, intermittency becomes a severe vulnerability. In fact, the Central Electricity Authority projects that India will require up to 411 gigawatt-hours of storage by 2032 just to keep the grid stable. For early entrants, that creates a guaranteed, highly predictable long-term demand curve.
Moving right along to Section 2, Technology and Competition, Navigating the Landscape. Our technology landscape analysis reveals a massive shift that's completely redefining competitive intelligence right now. The market has decisively pivoted toward lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, chemistry. And the reason is simple. For India's high ambient temperatures, LFP's superior thermal stability is absolutely non-negotiable. It drastically reduces fire risks compared to nickel, manganese, cobalt variants, and it offers the longer cycle life that utility-scale projects demand. So if you're setting up a plant today, LFP is without a doubt your target.
Now, looking at the competitive benchmarking, the market is somewhat consolidated at the top. You've got massive conglomerates like Tata Power and Adani dominating the utility-scale power purchase agreements, alongside global tech providers like Fluence. But here's the secret. Competitive intelligence reveals significant white space for new entrants. The real gap lies in localized engineering, customized commercial and industrial solutions, and specialized EPC capabilities. You don't actually have to beat Tata at their own game. You just need to provide the specialized local supply chain that they desperately rely on.
Which brings us to Section 3, Strategic Site, Rajasthan, the geographic epicenter.
Our site selection analysis clearly pinpoints Rajasthan as ground zero for this entire industry. It boasts the highest solar generation potential in the entire country at a staggering 142 gigawatts. By locating your manufacturing plant here, you are literally sitting right next to your ultimate end users, like the massive Bodla solar park. That proximity drastically cuts down the logistical friction and the heavy transportation costs of moving those massive containerized battery units.
Furthermore, whether you're looking at a greenfield or a brownfield plant setup, you need plug-and-play infrastructure. Prime REICO industrial zones, like the Neemrana and Biwadi clusters, offer exactly that. These aren't just empty dirt plots in the middle of nowhere. They offer immediate critical integration with established auto component and metal fabrication supply chains. And trust me, that is essential when you're sourcing heavy battery enclosures and thermal management systems.
And from a regulatory compliance assessment perspective, the policy ecosystem in Rajasthan actively mitigates your operational risk. The government is heavily driving localized production with a massive 18,100 crore rupee production-linked incentive scheme. But even more compelling for your go-to-market strategy, there's a unique mandate requiring local distribution companies to source up to 3% of their energy specifically from storage by 2026. That essentially guarantees a captive domestic market for your output.
All right, Part 4, Operations Timeline, from concept to production.
Your success here relies on strict, ruthless project execution against the 24-month roadmap. It moves systematically. You go from the initial site selection of around 20,000 square feet for basic pack assembly, straight through a pretty grueling licensing phase, into cleanroom infrastructure construction, and finally arriving at pilot production and factory acceptance testing.
This right here is the exact timeline your project execution and site management teams must execute against. Finally, Section 5, Financial Feasibility, Project Economics, and ROI.
So, what's the actual damage? Well, your capital expenditure scales heavily based on your strategic entry point. If you're looking at setting up a battery pack assembly facility, you're looking at an initial investment of roughly 25 to 100 crore rupees. However, if your strategy is to build a gigascale, fully integrated lithium cell manufacturing plant from scratch, you're looking at an investment starting at 150 crore and scaling rapidly into the billions. Now here's a reality check on your operational expenditures. A staggering 80 to 85% of your OpEx will be tied directly to raw material costs, specifically sourcing those lithium-ion cells. Only about 5 to 10% goes to utilities and the rest to labor. What this means is that your procurement strategy and your supply chain optimization are literally the single most critical factors in defending your margins. But don't let those material costs scare you off, because the economic outlook is actually highly robust. Standard projections for a well-run facility indicate gross profit margins between 20 and 30%, with really attractive net margins sitting around 12 to 18%. Because of the capital-intensive nature of the equipment, the standard break-even timeline for this kind of manufacturing venture is reliably modeled at about 4 to 6 years.
And if you want to accelerate that break-even point even further, savvy operators are focusing heavily on something called revenue stacking. This means you don't just sell a battery to store power. Instead, you design systems that allow end users to use the exact same assets to provide multiple grid services simultaneously. Think peak tariff arbitrage, frequency regulation, and emergency backup all at once. Designing your products to enable this kind of stacking allows you to command premium pricing in the market.
So we've laid out the blueprint. We looked at the massive market feasibility, the exact RICO industrial plots in Rajasthan, the technology trends, and the financial outlays required to make it happen. The strategy is clear. The only real question left is, do you have the operational agility to act on this unprecedented manufacturing opportunity before the competitive white space fills up entirely? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this provided the structured insights you need for your next big venture.